Good evening, everybody. This is Seth Engelborg, Chair of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. We are meeting for the March 6th meeting of the Conservation Commission in a hybrid fashion with one commissioner physically present in the meeting trailer and currently 4 on Zoom. We'll begin by establishing a roll call of members. Members, when you hear your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Here.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
and I am here, Seth Engelborg. The next thing we'll be doing is going over the agenda and our continuances tonight. So under public hearing, we have Sconsie Beach Preservation Fund, 41 through 119 Baxter Road, SE 48 37 36, continued to March 12th. Under notice of intent, no waiver required pre-January 1st submissions. We have Three Star Farm LLC, 76 Eel Point Road, SE 48 38 84, continued till March 20th. Under notice of intent, no waiver required. We have Nantucket Islands Land Bank, Smooth Hummocks Way, SE 48 38 93, continued till March 20th. Then under notice of intent, waiver required pre-January 1st submissions. We have Sconsie Beach Preservation Fund at 59 through 83 Baxter Road, SC 48 37 59, continue to March 20th. In the Summer House of Nantucket Realty Trust, 10 and 16 Ocean Avenue, SC 48 38 24, continue to March 20th. We have Segalini Properties LLC, 8 Bassett Road, SC 48 38 51, continue to March 20th. We have West Ashore LLC, 62 Winoma Way, SC 48 38 69, continued till March 20th. Under amended orders of conditions, waiver required. We have 36 Tennessee LLC at 36 Tennessee Avenue, SC 48 38 07, continued to March 20th. And I believe that's all. I see Commissioner Williams has joined the Zoom at 5:02 p.m., as has Commissioner Brain. Commissioner Brain, can you respond in the affirmative if you're here?
I am here.
Commissioner Williams?
Yep.
All right, all 7 members are present. Please note that for the record and the times that they came on. And with that being said, we need a motion to accept the agenda. Is
So
there a
move,
motion?
Mr. Chairman.
We'll take Joe Plandowski, and I'll take
Second.
Linda for the second. We do need to do a roll call vote. So we'll begin with Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And we'll be moving on in the agenda to public comment. Just as a reminder, this is comments for items not specifically on the agenda this evening. If you wish to comment on an item that's listed on the agenda, please wait until then and we will recognize you at the time. We'll be using the select board's established procedures for public comment. We won't be taking substantive discussion, just recording your comment for potential future action. And we'll be limiting comments to 3 minutes or less. At this time, if you have a public comment for items not listed on the agenda, please raise your hand either virtually or in person. If it's in person, Mike, you're going to have to let us know.
We'll do that.
I see Allison Hudson with the hand raised. Allison, do you have a public comment?
I just wanted to confirm that the 14 Plover clear cutting is on the agenda. I might have missed it.
14 Plover is on the agenda under enforcement actions, which is the second to last thing on the agenda today.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed it.
No worries. Is there any other public comments? Seeing none, we will move on in our agenda to our public hearing. And we're going to be starting in the notice of intent, no waiver required. Actually, no, we're going to have to do the no waiver required with the new protocol. So under the new protocols for no waiver required, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the applications listed here to see if any commissioners, applicants, or members of the public wish to open those hearings. If so, we will. If not, we'll confirm with staff that we have everything we need to close those hearings, and we'll close them as a block. If you have any questions about this process, please raise your hand and we will figure this out. RJ, do you have a question?
Sort of. I'm going to be recused from 10 Hummock. I don't know if it matters at
It
this
does
point,
matter.
but
Yes, it does matter.
Okay.
So are there any other commissioners needing to recuse on any of these applications 1 through 5 under no waiver required section?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to skip ahead and take number 3 first. McCausland at 10 Smooth Hummocks Way with Commissioner Turcotte recused. So Commissioner Turcotte, please recuse at this point. And other commissioners, is there any interest in opening this application for discussion? If so, please raise your hand or let me know. Seeing none, do any applicants or members of the public wish to open this for discussion? If so, please raise your hand at this point. Okay, seeing not, Will, do we have the requisite information we need to close this application?
I believe we do on this one. Sorry, it's been a while since I've been on Zoom.
Do we have a file number?
Yes. The file number is 3897 on this one.
Okay. Thank you. With that information, commissioners, I will take a motion to close this application.
Move, Mr. Chair.
I'll take the
I'll
second
second it.
from Linda. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative and Commissioner Turcotte recused. Thank you all. So now we'll move back to the rest of the section of that, or the rest of the items in that agenda section. The ones we have that have not been continued are number 1, Wolfram Family Trust, 7 Folger Lane, SE 483894. Number 4, Town of Nantucket, 2 Ames Avenue and Dionis Beach, SE 483895. And number 5, Friedman, 35 Pilgrim Road. Is there any commissioners who'd like to open number 1 on that list, Wolfram Family Trust? If so, please raise your hand. Are there any members of the public or applicants who would like to discuss that application? Okay. Next, number 4, the Town of Nantucket, Ames Avenue and Dionis Beach application. Any commissioners who would like to open this for discussion? Please raise your hand. Yes, thank you, RJ. We will open that for discussion, but before we do that, we'll move on to Friedman, 35 Pilgrim Road. Actually, Will, do we have a file number for that one?
We do. 1 second. Some things happened while I was in transit today, you know. Friedman, we may not have been issued a number yet. Because Lisa sent me one final update and I don't have a DEP number. So unless Mark or Dan.
Okay.
Mark's got his-
The applicant's representative is Mark Ritz. I see his hand raised. I'll recognize him at this point. Mark, good evening.
Good evening, Mark Ritz for the applicant. We do have a file number issued by DEP on their website. It's 3896.
Thank you. And while I have you on the line, would you like to open this application for discussion or no?
I would not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Big
We do have
surprise.
to, we have to ask. So with that being said, um, is, or actually, do any members of the public wish to open that application for discussion? Okay, seeing not, with that being said, is there a motion to close the hearings on Wolfram Family Trust, 7 Folger Lane, SU 483894, and Friedman 35 Pilgrim Road, those two applications? Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you,
So move,
Joe.
Mr. Chairman. I'll
And we'll take
second.
Linda for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. That carries unanimously, and those two applications are closed. And we'll now move on to opening the application for Town of Nantucket to Ames Avenue and Downes Beach, SE 483895, which is represented by more, or maybe Leah today. Okay, Leah Hill, please introduce yourself for the record and go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I am representing this application tonight. Morgan is off today and we are both working on the project. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, is there any questions or things you'd like to continue to discuss after our hearing last time? This had been opened and then there was some additional information we requested. So at this point, if you have any comments or questions, please make them.
Thank you, Chair Engelborg. So I
Go
just
ahead.
last time also mentioned that I just didn't think this qualified as a water dependent use, but it is permittable. I just wanted to figure out another way to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Other commissioners? All right, so I'm going to weigh in here too. So there was two big questions about whether this was a water dependent use and whether this might be considered a structure. I'm going to take the water dependent use first because Commissioner Turcott mentioned it. So I'm stronger of the belief that this is not a water dependent use. If you look at the technology, it's meant to be actually a wind dependent use. It's meant to capture aeolian sediment, transport, have the sand blow up into the technologies and capture grass and stabilize the bank. And theoretically, although it wouldn't really make sense, but theoretically, you could take these same technologies and put them 25 feet outside of the coastal bank buffer, and they would do that same thing. They would still capture windblown sand and eventually grow beach grass. That being said, I'm not arguing that we do that. I'm just saying that we shouldn't permit this as a water dependent use. That means we will have to issue a waiver for this project, but luckily, this Conservation Commission, in its last regulatory update, designed a waiver specifically for this purpose. It's a waiver that's new, that has not existed previously. And I'm gonna pull it up for you, but it basically is a waiver that can be granted when there's significant public benefit while minimizing any adverse impacts. So that's a new waiver requirement that we put into place here. And if you think about the purpose of this project, it's on a public beach to prevent erosion of a public area for public recreation and wildlife habitat and all those other protected interests. I can't think of a project where this waiver would make more sense than any that we've seen so far. So it's the commission may grant a waiver from these regulations when the project as proposed provides a significant public benefit and adverse impacts are minimized by project design or conditions imposed by the commission. So I think we could just apply that waiver and not have to worry about water dependency. And then getting back to the whole bit about what's a structure and what's not a structure. And you'll hear a bigger comment from me and commissioners' comments tonight, but it's come to our attention, or at least my attention, that there is some vagueness in what our definition says for structure. But here's the most important part. So the first part of structure is a combination of materials assembled at a fixed location to give support or shelter. So the most important word in that sentence for this project is fixed location. And if you think about this project versus something like a geotube or a seawall or what have you, it's being put temporarily in a location, but then it's being removed. So I don't think that meets the qualification for fixed location because it's not meant to stay there throughout the life of the project. So I think we can say that this is not a structure because it's not at a fixed location. That being said, and you'll hear this more in commissioner's comment, I have some real easy suggestions for how I think we can fix this definition to make permitting much more straightforward moving forward. And I'll talk about them later. But I think I've thought about this project a lot, and I think we could say it's not a structure. It's also not water dependent, and it certainly would qualify for that public benefit waiver. So commissioners, anyone want to weigh in on that? Tim?
I'm comfortable with what you said.
Yeah, I
Thank
was
you.
gonna
Thank
say
you,
the
Linda.
same. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else?
I'm glad it's not a structure.
Thank you, Joe. Other commissioners?
Good to go.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public? Anyone in the room, Mike?
Nobody in the room?
Okay. Will, do we have all the information we need to close this application?
Through you, Seth, I gotta bounce a quick question to Leah and I'm crossing my fingers, but did you get a response from Heritage?
Not yet. They sent a couple questions and I answered them today immediately, and I have not heard back from them yet.
Okay. So in that case, unfortunately, we don't have all the information we need to close this application, which is very unfortunate because it's probably going to make this project untenable for this season, such is the sad reality of permitting. But we will need to continue to the next meeting, which
Which is, Seth, is that March 20th?
it is March 20th. Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll still have time to be able to implement it. I anticipate it taking no more than a day.
If they respond.
If the deadline for them to respond is March 15th. So
Okay. All right. All right. Yes, Will, go ahead.
Sorry, I should just be using my button now that I'm not in the room. I just want to say too, for clarity, I know like Leah and Morgan have had a lot of back and forth with them today, but also I know our big concern that Morgan presented last meeting was that we couldn't even order the stuff without the permit, but we got lucky and, well, not lucky. I think Leah and Morgan worked very hard, so the stuff got ordered and we're okay. So I think it'll be fine. Everybody cross your fingers.
Yeah, I mean, if the permit is able to be issued on the 20th, and the town ends up installing them in late March, I mean, they are going to be during the appeal process, so they're going to be at their own risk, but hopefully nobody appeals this. But yes, Mike, I see your hand.
I was first.
Sorry. Commissioner Williams, you were first.
We have a meeting next week, do we not? For SBPF? Isn't there one in here somewhere already?
Yes,
I
but
see none.
I personally, in my authority as chair, am very against using special meetings for purposes other than the purpose of that meeting. So I will not
Okay.
consent to that request.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead.
It was the same question Linda had, so we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. anything else from members of the public, or we already asked that? We don't have anything we need, we don't have everything we need to close. Leah, it's my understanding you want to continue to March 20th.
Yes, please.
This will continue to March 20th.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. Okay, so that concludes that section. And then we'll be going on to notice of intent waiver required pre-January 1st submissions. And I think there's just one, which is Lydia Denny Palmer LLC, 110 Wilmington Road, SC 483868. I know Commissioner Miserelli is recused and somebody else, was it
Me,
Linda?
it's me. Yeah,
Linda? Okay. So please recuse. And with that, this application is being represented by Brian Madden. Brian, good evening.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So based on the feedback we got at the prior meeting, we revised the application. So we removed the board fence component within the 25 to 50 foot buffer zone. So the board fence is only being extended 11 feet, linear feet, stopping at the 50 foot buffer zone. Same design as previously proposed. And then between the 50 and 25, it's transitioning to split rail fencing and dense vegetated screening consisting of arrowwood and or groundsel tree. And the only aspect requiring the waiver is that proposed revegetation area, replacing the skip laurel cherries with that ornamental plant with the native arrowwood and groundsel tree. So I think, we've addressed the commission's questions, concerns, and be willing to answer any final questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Yes, RJ.
Through you, Seth, to Brian and the applicant, thank you. Thank you for taking us out to the site, showing us around, and thank you for changing this up. I know this one's been a little bit of a drawn out one, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all
Okay.
for the feedback.
Anyone else? Seeing not, we will now move on to questions or comments from members of the public. I'll recognize John Walker. Please introduce yourself for the record and your connection to the project and make your comment.
Yes, hello, it's John Walker. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So, hello?
Yes, hello.
Okay. So,
I'm in the middle of a conservation hearing with Nantucket.
I'm sorry, should I go?
If someone was unmuted, but it's all set. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you can proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, John.
Yes, my name is John Walker. I'm the abutter and long-term resident, and I respectfully oppose the fence application to 110 for the following reasons. The environmental impact is number one. Any fence, including a split rail design, would harm the coastal bank ecosystem. The previous unauthorized fence damaged vegetation. Reintroducing a fence risks further disruption to the wildlife and plant life. Number two, unnecessary for stated purpose. A natural buffer of dense shrubs already provides a privacy and noise reduction. With homes over 100 feet apart, the fence is redundant. Number three, precedent setting. Approval could encourage similar exceptions, undermining wetland protection across Nantucket. Number four, aesthetic impact. The fence would be visible from the beach and the wall when it in, compromising Nantucket's scenic view shed. Number five, concerns over the motives. Given the existing buffer, the distance between the homes, and the applicant's history of violations, the fence appears motivated by factors beyond privacy or noise reduction. I urge the commission to uphold the Wetlands Protection Act and preserve Nantucket's natural resources. I also urge the commission to strengthen enforcement, including meaningful fines to deter future violations. The recent clearing of conservation land at 14 Clover being one example, as well as the flagpole at 110 Walnut that was installed without permits over a year ago and still remains. My requests are that you deny this application and also address the unauthorized flagpole at 110 Walnut. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Yes, Ms. Kaufman.
Hi, thank you. I just want to also thank the commission for being flexible and working with us. And that just state that we've tried to work with you and hoping that the split rail fence and the vegetation in the buffer zone in the area that we're talking about is satisfactory and will have a minimal impact. But I just wanted to thank you for working with us.
Thank you as well. Anyone else? Seeing not. Commissioners, any responses? Seeing not. Will, do we have everything we need to close this application?
Yes, we do, good sir.
Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you, Joe, and we'll take RJ for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli. Oh, he's recused, sorry. Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. That carries 5 in the affirmative with Commissioners Mazzarelli and Williams recused.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
So we'll move on now in our agenda. And we'll be headed to notice of intent waiver required. This is for post January 1st submissions. We have one, which is NED Site Management LLC shoal dredging off of 34 Straight Wharf, represented by Carlos Pena. Good evening. Carlos, can you hear us?
I can, I'm sorry. Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the commission. I believe we continued this last week or last 2 weeks ago because the ad in the Inquirer and the Mirror hadn't been placed and we had not received a DEP file number. So at this point, I'm pleased to report that we have both. And again, the job was an emergency dredging project for the slip over at Straight Wharf for the Highline Ferry, which was completed on January 6th. This is an after the fact notice of intent filing. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Will, can you confirm those statements?
Yep, all true and correct.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Seeing none, any questions or comments from members of the public? Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do. Got
Carlos,
the
would you
DEP
like to
number, that's all
close?
we're waiting for, sir.
Carlos, would you like to close?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Is there a motion to close?
I'll make a motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Joe's beating you all day today, so we'll
Oh
take
my God.
and you for the second. Joe for the motion, Linda for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberger, aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. Thank you.
You as well. And we'll now move on to our public meeting. We'll begin in the public meeting with orders of conditions. We don't have too many, but we do have a few. And the first that we'll be starting with is Wolfram Family Trust at 7 Folger Avenue, SC 483894.
And Seth, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Something, if you wouldn't mind. I want to make sure that we issue the findings page for the shoal dredging and I don't have it. Can we hold that until after enforcements? It's gonna be a simple one, so I can whip it up during that presentation,
Sure,
if you don't mind.
that's fine. Do you have the
Yep.
document for Folger Avenue ready for us?
Yep. This meeting moved too fast for me to finish drafting that in the background. I was like, wait a second, guys, slow down. All right. Will has become very accustomed to at least 2 screens for this situation, so bear with me, but here we go. 7 Folger. 6. All right, so this was a proposed construction of an addition, reconfiguration of patios and decking, driveway modification and landscaping at 7 Folger Lane. Non-waiver, no NHESP. We had conditions 18, 19, and our lighting condition.
Thanks, Will. I think we're moving towards putting all natives, no cultivars, and no agricultural chemicals on every permit that has landscaping at this point, so put those on. And while he does that, commissioners, any other additions, questions, comments, concerns? Okay.
Oh, species, sorry.
I mean, it
That's it.
technically worked, but it's just redundant.
I don't like it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve and issue this order as amended?
And so moved.
Thank you, Linda and Joe, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Ingleberg, aye. That carries unanimously. We'll pull the next one up for us, which should be McCausland at 10 Smooth Hummocks Way, with Commissioner Turcott recused.
I don't know how, but I'm missing this one. We may have to just hold this one over, or I can also draft that. It'd be super easy, if you don't mind.
Given the technical difficulties and that you're not in the office today, my recommendation is to hold this over to the March
Hold
20th
this one
meeting.
over. I think the shoal dredging one, not to jump around, but I think that one I might be wise to do tonight because for some reason I have it in my head that we're coming up against a clock on that. But that could be my imagination.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that one has any conditions really. It just has to say,
Yeah.
just has it one additional finding saying that it was the result of an emergency order by the
Right.
city.
Yeah, all right,
But
cool. So if you don't mind holding this one over, we can hold this one over.
we will hold 10 Smooth Hummocks Way till March 20th.
Thank you.
And the next is Friedman at 35 Pilgrim Road.
Got that. All right, this one's 35 Pilgrim Road. This was just for a sewer connection to an existing sewer line within Pilgrim Road. Buffer zone to a BVW. And we just had 18 and 19 on this one for sewer connection.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns, additions? If not, is there a motion to issue the order of conditions as drafted?
So moved.
So
Thank
moved.
you. I think it was
Second.
John who did the motion. And
Yeah.
Linda for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Roger Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Steph Engelborg, aye. That carries unanimously. And we'll now go on to Lydia Denny Palmer, LLC, 110 Wilmington Road, SC 483868, with Commissioners Mazzarelli and Williams recused. So we'll get Will to pull that one up for us.
Where are you, Zoom? There we go. All right. 110 Wowinet. Change this. So this was the proposed extension of a board fence at 110 Wowinet Road. Buffer zone to coastal bank and dune and land subject to coastal storm flowage. We had our waiver with this one. No NHESP. 18 and 19, I believe we should throw I drafted this before there was any revegetation a long time ago, so we'll put our ag chemicals and native species. Uh,
John, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's the appeal process for something like this? Assuming that this one might be one that was ripe for an appeal.
Yes. I don't
21
want to talk about it right now, but at a
Okay.
different point, we can discuss that. And it's also well documented in the Wetlands Protection Act, so you can find the
Okay.
section and read it if you want.
Thanks.
Right, that'll be it.
Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments, additions? Brian, I see your hand raised. We are in a public meeting, so I'll recognize you for the purpose of clarifying information only.
Thank you. So just in the permit overview, just wanted to make the distinction of the board fence and the split rail fence. And the plantings, and then the waiver specific to only the revegetation in the 25-foot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do need to change that. So yeah, the waiver is just for the revegetation, and because the split rail fence is not a structure. So it's just getting rid of that skip laurel that they're talking about, putting in and then it permits the proposed extension of a board fence up to the 50-foot buffer, and then a split rail fence inside the 50-foot buffer. And then landscaping within the 50-foot buffer and restoration.
Oh, at 110. And then
The waiver is just for the restoration though,
so
and it's
so we
not,
need to change.
yeah, that's not the actual
Yeah.
section of the regulations that
that's not
matters.
Put it live. Just trying to pull up the regs on a secondary laptop.
Well, I guess it's still the same, section. It's all projects
say,
which
I
are
might
not
think
water.
it's-
It's still the same performance standard. Yeah, it's just not a structure. It's just changing
So
it.
this is literally what I write usually is
That projects
projects.
must maintain a 25-foot buffer.
Yeah. All right. I think that makes sense.
Commissioners,
Just rereading.
thoughts?
It looks good to me.
All right. Are we all
I'm just double
satisfied?
checking while we're here, but we're good.
Okay.
I just checked.
Okay. So with that being said, is there a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended?
Motion issue as amended.
Thank you, John and Joe, for the second by roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries with 5 in the affirmative, and Commissioners Mizzarelli and Williams recused. We have one more notice of or order of conditions, which is for NED site management. But at the request of Town of Nantucket NRD staff, we will be holding off in the agenda for now. And we'll be coming back to that at the end of tonight's meeting. So with that being said, we'll be moving on. We have no request for delineation or determination of applicability tonight. We have 2 minor modifications. The first is Netta Movagar Revocable Trust at 9 Woodbury Lane, SE 483631, represented by Brian Madden. But before you speak, Mr. Madden, I want to acknowledge an unfortunate situation that happened where in our pack, the header for this application is there, but if you click the link, there's no file. So I believe, unfortunately, none of the commissioners have seen this. Would somebody from the commission confirm that's the case? Linda?
I have to recuse from this. I did the original demolition.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Williams is recused. Other commissioners, has anyone been able to see this?
I have not.
No.
I'm
No.
very sorry, Mr. Madden, but we will need to continue.
No worries. See you on the 20th.
Thank you. We will continue this to March 20th. And so we'll move on to 3 North Road LLC at 7 North Gully Road, represented by David Haynes. David, good evening.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I didn't see that one was on there.
Okay.
I'm recused from 7 North Gully.
Thank you. This has Commissioner Mizzarelli recused. David, good evening.
Great. Good evening. Boy, your new format is moving things along pretty quickly. This is excuse me. This is a request for minor modifications for installation of geothermal wells in the buffer zone. And it's outside of the 50-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank, but it is within land subject to flooding. These would be closed loops, 6 wells, closed loop system. So there's no withdrawal of water or discharge of water, but it's just basically a heat exchanger down the wells. The wells would be installed in inside of the previously approved limit of work that will be landscaped in the future, and also and the trenching to get the water, the lines back to the system. So basically, it's just I talked to Will about it, whether it's an amendment or a minor mod, and it seemed to be minor in nature. No regrading, no alteration of anything else. It's just the installation of those wells. So we felt it should qualify as a minor mod. It is under the old regs. I use the term old regs because I dealt with old regs, which were pre-82. So, but under your regulations, it's under the old regulation. So I appreciate your attention to this matter.
Thank you, David. Commissioners, questions or comments? Yes, John, go ahead.
Hi, David. How deep are the trenches going back to the system?
Well, they'd be just below the frost line, so they wouldn't freeze, and 3 or 4 feet, 4 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, do we have all the information that we would need to close this application?
Yes, we do, Seth.
Thank you. Is there a motion to issue the minor mod? Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams. She doesn't seem there, but that's fine. Seth Engelborg or Linda, can you hear us?
Yeah, and you're still on Woodbury, correct?
No.
Or are we on North Gully? Okay,
We're on North
yeah.
Gully.
I'm okay.
Do you vote in the affirmative?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Seth Engelborg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative with Commissioner Mizzarelli recused. And we'll now move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. The next item in our agenda is extension requests. We have none. And we'll move on to other business. The first thing we'll be doing is approving several sets of minutes from 6/20/2024, 6/27/2024, 7/11/2020. It says 5, but I think it's 4, 7/25/2024, and 8/8/2024. Commissioners, Will, go ahead. You're muted.
Wow, I can't do Zoom anymore. I think we skipped a COC unless I spaced out and somebody pretended to be me.
We did skip a COC. We'll get the COC in 1 second, but we're already on the minute, so we'll go back.
No problem.
Commissioners, any questions or comments about minutes? Yes, RJ, go ahead.
I'm just gonna abstain because I wasn't here.
Thank you. That's totally fair. Anyone else? Additions, issues? If not, yeah, Joe, go ahead.
Will, I assume those minor corrections that I found were taken care of for July 11th.
Yeah, I had sorry, through you, Seth. I had Morgan go ahead and make those edits like right after our phone call, so we should be good.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve all those sets of minutes?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Thank you, Mike and Linda, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brand,
Aye.
Mike Miserly,
Aye.
Joe Planowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott. You have to say abstain if you want to abstain.
Abstained.
Okay, Linda Williams
Aye.
and Seth Engelberg, aye. Thank you, and thank you to all the staff who worked tirelessly on those minutes, since I know it's a tough job. So we'll go back to certificates of compliance. We have one, which is Pasanante 41 Long Pond Drive, SC 48 3205. Says it's represented by Don Bracken, but I believe we have Will representing this for us. Will, is that correct?
Yes, I didn't know if I was unmuted yet. So I'll be representing this real quick. This is one from 2019. I have my nice travel version of my CFC situation here. So this was a shed construction and the relocation of an existing shed. There was some grading, landscaping, utility installation. It was a BVW and inland bank. We did have one additional finding that the lot also contained land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is true. We only had condition 18 on this one, so we don't have anything to continue unless we are continuing the additional finding that the lot contains LSCSF, which I think is valuable to continue if we can continue additional findings. I think we have.
We can't really continue additional findings, because that would mean
Okay.
that we could theoretically constrain the resource areas on a site in perpetuity. Like,
Yeah, which is
it
what I'm
contained
like.
it then, but it doesn't mean it contains it now.
Right.
Delineations are valid for 3 years, so it doesn't do anything for us to continue.
Yeah, so that doesn't matter. So no continuing conditions, but everything is as shown on the plan and all good. And that was really my only note.
Thank you. My one comment that I've said before in a different application, hopefully it doesn't have to be said a third time, but when we updated our procedures, we specifically are now requesting that when submitting certificates of compliance, the applicant attaches not just the first page of the order, but the whole order, so that we don't have to go and search for all the continuing conditions, which in this case there are none, but sometimes there are. So
Yeah.
if you're a representative of a project, please do that. With that being said, commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay. Seeing not, is there a motion to issue this certificate of compliance with no ongoing conditions?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda and Joe, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brand,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandelski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. Will, are you ready for the NED order or not yet?
It'd be best after 14 Plover, if that's
Okay.
cool, before
Yep.
staff report.
Yep. So we're gonna go back to other business. Under monitoring reports, I don't believe we have any this week. Committee reports, correct? Tim,
No, nothing new.
CPC, John,
Nothing new.
NPNEDC, Mike,
Nothing new.
Harbor Plan, Linda.
We're still slogging through, but we're into the recommendations now, so we're moving along slowly.
Great, thank you. That will move us on to commissioners' comments. Commissioners, any comments?
Another great meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we're not done yet.
We're getting there.
Okay. time for my comment then. So my comment is over the past few meetings, or really for the past several months, we've been having some difficulty in figuring out what a coastal engineering structure is, more because we're having some difficulty figuring out what a structure is. And we did update the regulations that went into place on January 1st. And I think we have a meeting scheduled for May to consider updates again. And I think we're gonna have to make at least this specific update sooner rather than later. So for structure, there's two issues that could be ameliorated very easily that would clear up a lot of concern. So again, structure under our definitions right now is a combination of materials assembled at a fixed location to give support or shelter. So my first suggestion that I'm making is to say assembled at a either continuously fixed or permanently fixed location. That would clear up things like the Dune Guard project or the cliff stabilizers, and that other temporary experimental methods wouldn't have to be viewed as structures. I think that would save us a lot of headaches. And the second is getting back to some discussions or debates we've had about do things like Kawar terraces meet the definition for structure. I think we can probably delineate structures based on whether they're made out of naturally occurring non-man-made materials or non-naturally occurring man-made materials. If we said I don't know what the exact right wording is right now. I'm sure we're going to have to look at it and get a legal opinion. But if we said something like a combination of non-naturally occurring man-made materials assembled at a continuously fixed location, that would rule out Kawar terraces as a structure. That would rule out fencing as a structure, unless it was, some type of man-made thing that was done in a way that was not biodegradable. That would rule out these temporary installations, because even right now, it's arguable that if you just put like temporary soil stabilization measures down, like sedimentation, anti-sedimentation mats, arguably under our regulations, that's a structure. So I think if we just cleared these up with saying that the difference is that it's at a continuously fixed location and it's made out of non-natural materials, that makes something a structure. I think that would fix maybe not 100% of our problems, but it would fix at least 75% of our problems. But that's my personal opinion. We're not having a public meeting or a public hearing for this right now, so we are going to have to at some point schedule that. But I just want everyone to make their own assessments and think about what I've said, and then think how we can get to a place where it's much easier for everybody, including the public applicants and the commission, to understand what's the CES and what's not, so that permitting isn't so complicated. Thank you. Other commissioners?
Works for me.
All right, well, we can't decide on it today. We have to actually schedule a hearing, but I appreciate it. Any other commissioners' comments? All right, seeing not, we are gonna, yes, Joe, go ahead.
I've been on the other side of that issue only this simple reason. You can't find in the Commonwealth regulations anything that says that core whatever are CESs. They don't define it that way. My only position is we should try to keep the regulations such that there's uniformity in it. It'll make it a lot easier for everybody. Otherwise, you get every town that's going to come up with their own definition. And it becomes chaos in the long run.
Thank you, Joe. And if we put the changes into place that I'm suggesting today, it would essentially mean that Kawar terraces weren't treated as a structure unless they were assembled in some way using some combination of non-natural materials that were different than what's being proposed today. But right now, it's essentially biodegradable materials. I mean, it's obviously engineered in a way, but um, doing this definition would give a lot of clarity to Kawar especially.
That's great.
Okay, so we'll now move on in the agenda to enforcement actions. I know we have 14 Plover Lane. Before we go to 14 Plover Lane, Will, is there anything else that we need to go over?
I don't believe that there's anything else to go over tonight. I'm trying to think if there's any, I don't really need to give an update on, the summer house or anything. It's just continued. We're at the NOI stage, so that's really that and 62 Winoma. We're just where we were, last meeting still.
Thank you.
Um,
Joe, do you have a question?
I do, and that is, I was looking to see what was going to come up with 49 Meadowview Drive. That was sent out on February 24th, and it wasn't on the agenda, which sort of surprised me.
49 Meadowview. Sorry. As an enforcement?
No, as anything on the agenda.
Yeah, let's not talk about that right now because we're in
I'm
the
lost.
enforcement. We're in the enforcement section only, so you can ask Will about that after the meeting. Okay, so that being said, we have an enforcement action for 14 Plover Lane. I'll give the basic overview here and then I'll let Will speak. And then I know we have several representatives here before us to describe what happened. So this was an enforcement order issued to Act 2 LLC. It was for the widespread mastication and removal of understory vegetation on the on-site wetland and associated buffer zone. It was first signed by Will as a conservation agent and then ratified at our February 6th Conservation Commission meeting. We also amended that order at that time to require the violator to appear before us today. I know they are here, or at least their representative is here to appear before us. So with that, Will, is there anything else to add at this point?
I believe you covered it all, and I think that kind of any information that we're not already all aware of, I think will be soon to come.
Thank you. So the first thing we'll do is we will allow the violator or the representatives to introduce themselves for the record, indicate what happened and any potential plans to bring the site into compliance and remediate the site. Who is going to be starting that discussion?
Hi, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. I think Glenn Wood was going to start representing the property owner. I see Glenn still muted though.
I see Glenn here. Glenn, can you hear us? If so, please unmute and introduce yourself for the record. I'm not sure if he's
Yeah,
actually with us.
sorry. I just texted him. I'm sure he'll be on shortly. Well, I can provide a quick update
Please do
before he
so.
jumps on. So last week on February 25th, I was out at the site. What was completed was the wetland delineation across the entire portion of the property. We're in the process of surveying those wetland flags and providing an existing conditions plan for the basis of the restoration plan. We've assessed the activity that was conducted on site, and we are in the process of developing a restoration plan to bring the site back into compliance and restore any altered areas. It is our intent to get that filed within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And hopefully, if amenable to the commission, be able to fully present that to the commission at the April 3rd meeting and have the restoration work conducted this spring season with plants in the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Glenwood, are you with us?
Let me give him a call.
Okay.
Apologies, Seth. I called him, got voicemail, so I sent him another message, but please proceed forward.
Okay. Is anybody else, the property owner or anybody else, expected to speak other than Mr. Wood?
No, but via Glenn, we had submitted a letter from the property owner. I don't know if that was posted. It just came in this afternoon. I could read it or
The commission is in receipt of this letter. It was received very late, so it is not part of the public record at this
Yep.
point, but the commission has received it. Okay. So at this point, if Mr. Wood is not available for us, we will look to the commission to see how we want to proceed. Commissioners, any thoughts, questions, comments at this point? Yes, Linda.
Do we have, I know we knew who it was on the last go around out in Wisconsin. Do we know who physically did this?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Madden. I believe Linda is asking, do we know who the physical person doing the work was? Was it the homeowner themselves or was it a contractor? If so, could you provide that information?
I personally do not know who performed the work,
Okay.
who the
Well,
contractor was.
In the
we are
future,
going
that's-
to hold up. We're going to specifically request that you find that information for us.
Okay.
Other commissioners.
Seth?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you to Brian. I did see the letter that came through the packet late. Not everybody got a chance to see it. I'm sure we're going to hear from quite a bit from the public as well. At the moment, we have a resource area that needs to come into compliance. So I'll be looking forward to seeing the remediation plans as soon as possible. And we may have some more comments after we hear some more from the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, just a question. Does the homeowner provide, excuse me, the remediation plans to us? And what's the procedure?
Thank you, Tim. We do have quite a bit of discretion on that. We could require them to submit a new notice of intent to do the remediation work. We could require them to submit a restoration plan, which probably makes sense in this case because a notice of intent for the original work that was done, I would say has a 0% likelihood of ever getting permitted through this commission. So in the case here, it would actually be faster and more straightforward to just go with a restoration order rather than require that NOI. I'm generally of the opinion that having an NOI submitted makes sense because you get more robust information. But for this case, I would say the primary goal is leading to restoration in as short amount of time as possible.
Thanks.
Yeah, and if I could just interject, I think the intent is to have a surveyed site plan and a very detailed planting plan with an accompanying narrative that is going to go into full description of what is being proposed, the activities, the monitoring aspects, and I think it will be a complete package for review. And again, the intent is to get this restoration work completed this spring season and target that time period.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what we ought to do is rather than speculate on what we'd like to get now, we ought to wait until we find out what the proposal is.
Okay.
And sorry, just one other quick thing. And so once we do submit that, I want to get it to the commission in a timely fashion, but I want it to be complete and certainly would be available to meet the commission out there to review the details of the restoration plan in advance of that April 3rd meeting.
Thank you. I see that Mr. Wood has joined the meeting. Since we weren't able to recognize him earlier, we'll recognize him now. Glenn, good evening.
Thank you. Sorry, I had a glitch here getting my audio to work. Anyways, just on the comment of the NOI versus the enforcement order process, I would totally agree with you that the goal here, and I think from a procedural standpoint, that once we submit a restoration/mitigation plan, Mr. Chairman, that we could do this through an enforcement order process. So I would agree with you that I think that's the right step as opposed to a new notice of intent or even amending the outstanding OOC. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners at this point? Okay. So I'm going to weigh in a little bit here. So although I said before, the primary goal of any enforcement is to mitigate the damage that had been done by the violation and restore the habitat that had been destroyed. I do believe that this specific violation is egregious in nature. I do think that in my 6 years on the commission, it's one of the more significant violations that I've ever seen. We're talking about nearly 100% of the violation happening actually in the resource area, not in the buffer zone. When we went on the site visit, not only was there just hydric soils, there was puddles of water and ponding happening. We're talking about 100% of the vegetation understory being removed. And it appears that even some trees may have been removed or at least were trimmed. So, we have to be serious as a conservation commission. Our goal is always to uphold the Wetland Protection Act and its interests and its resource areas and its performance standards. But we also, in cases like this, need to set an example that it's not acceptable to do egregious violations with no consequences. And if you look at, the resources available to us, we have the enforcement order process that we are proceeding now, which we will continue. We have fines that I think need to be assessed in this case. If you actually look at the language of the fining, regulation or the fining definition, fining language, sorry, it doesn't say may be assessed, it says shall be assessed. So not assessing fines in this case, I think would be a violation on our behalf. At the end of the day, non-criminal disposition, civil fines are very, very low. But we do need to assess those fines. I mean, we do have some discretion because it's like under our regulations, it says shall constitute a fine of up to $300 a day. And I guess we could issue a fine of $1 a day if we wanted, and that would still meet the shall requirement. But I do believe that we do need to issue fines in this site, and we do need to issue them for every day that this violation has occurred, to set an example that this type of behavior, which is blatantly in disregard for the Wetlands Protection Act and our local regulations, will not be tolerated. So thank you. Yes, Linda, go ahead.
I agree with you 100%. It was so public and so egregious that a word has to go out. So there's no more topping of trees. There's no more stuff like ensconce. People have to get a grip that they're going to be held accountable for this. And it's not going to be go ahead and do it and fall on your sword after because you've already done it and the damage is already done. So too bad, so sad. We get our view or whatever was the objective here. So I am complete agreement with what you just said. And I think we need to get tougher on this type of thing.
Thank you. And just for clarification, I mean, there are even more serious avenues that we could proceed down. There is, criminal disposition that we could proceed down. I don't necessarily think this meets the bar for criminal disposition, but it is available to us in cases that serious violations do occur. But at the minimum, we ratified this enforcement order on February 6th. That's, I think, like 28 days ago. The language in the regulations say every day that the violation continues should constitute a separate offense. And I know that the applicants want, or the representatives of the violators want to do their due diligence, get a full surveyed plan and a landscaping plan into place that is going to meet the needs of the commission. I respect that. But I think in order to get this done as fast as possible, we need to continue those $300 a day fines every day until that plan is submitted. And it's it's still going to be small amount of money. It might only end up being in the thousands compared to what the value of that land that was destroyed is, but we still need to do it. So thank you. Linda, go ahead.
In the case of the one in Wisconsin, the cost of remediation was very high. So I think in addition to the fining, and I agree it's every day it's existing, we can go ahead and do that 300 every day, and it's sort of minimal compared to the value of what they gained. But it was the remediation cost of what happened in Wisconsin that was the real hurt. And that was and I see us doing that again here. Whatever, they're going to have to come up with a plan. Obviously, Brian has to deal with the plan and the vegetation, et cetera, and we have to meet out there like we did in Wisconsin to see exactly what they have planned for this. It's going to take a long time for this to come back.
Thank you. And I am am fully in belief that the costs of doing this restoration plan and providing all the material and labor for that restoration will be quite expensive. But that isn't necessarily the case at hand here. It's that needs to happen, and we need to do the finding parallel process at the same time. Other commissioners, would you like to weigh in? I see Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, if there's any, I don't want to suggest silver lining, but I don't have a better term for it. The ground wasn't grubbed out there, so that was good. What I'm getting at there is I don't really want to go to just speaking for myself as a commissioner, go to the criminal intent. I'd be supportive of the fines and waiting for the restoration plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, and I'm sure others in the public will bring this up tonight, but there are like a few separate finding mechanisms that we have available to us. We have the fines available under the Nantucket Wetlands bylaw, and the fines available under the Wetlands Protection Act. And we can discuss how we would impose either or both of those. John Schaefer, go ahead.
Yeah, so are we saying the purpose of the fine is to compel compliance as quickly as possible? Is that the idea here? Or is it
Yes.
punitive, or-
And to send a message that this type of behavior won't be tolerated.
Okay, thank you.
Tim,
Is there any limit on the total amount of fines?
I mean, at some point you get into criminal disposition. I'm not gonna weigh in on that because I don't know exactly what it is. The maximum per day or per violation per day limit under the wetlands bylaw is $300. The maximum under the Wetlands Protection Act is actually up to $25,000, but
Okay.
I don't think we're issuing $25,000 fines for something like this.
Thanks.
Thank you. Joe Plandowski.
I'd like to see the plan before we jump on a fine schedule.
Okay, that's fair. RJ?
I'm on board with finding them every single day. It's the homeowner's responsibility, it's the property owner's responsibility to understand what's on their property and what they can and can't do. And that's nothing new. That's been around since owning property has been around. So I'm on board with finding them the 300 a day for as long as it takes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners want to weigh in at this point? You'll have another chance, but. Okay. So this is a public meeting. Yeah, Glenn, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just let me lower my hand here. Just one comment on that. Obviously I was involved in DiMartino, and as Linda pointed out, obviously the cost, without getting into that number, which I even forget what it was, the cost of the restoration plan there was massive in six figures. The mitigation restoration here is not going to be insignificant either. It won't reach, DiMartino, obviously, but there is a significant amount of square footage. I would say that based on my experience over 40-ish years of doing this, I've seen the non-disposition fines used by Concom's generally when a property owner just doesn't deal, just doesn't jump in, doesn't work. In this case, our client, obviously the letter he submitted, and by bringing on the team that he has, working with Don, Brian, and myself, I think the commission should have a ton of confidence that we're dealing with this, and we're on top of it and moving it as expeditiously as possible. Realizing, of course, that what was done was not appropriate. My only point, I realize that the fines are not that significant daily, but they do add up. What I've seen generally, though, is that because we can't, we're going to work as fast as we can, but if we miss a hearing or if it takes time to get something approved, some of these delays become not within our control. And therefore, getting fined for days that aren't within our control seems excessive to me. And I'm not looking to debate the issue tonight or whatever, but I just think that the commission, as Joe pointed out, once you see the mitigation plan, which I'm sure you're going to be receptive to because we're going to demand it, revisiting the fine and when one starts it and when one ends it, I think tabling that to that later date would be prudent. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
And I respect your point, and I know that your job and Mr. Brown's job is to pursue the interests of your client as best as you can. And I also know it wasn't either of you who committed the violation, it was your client. So you might not have control over delays and surveys or whatever have you with getting the process in order, but your client had utmost control, complete control over doing the violation or not. That's why I think the fine is relevant here. RJ, go ahead.
Thank you. I just also like to point out that the value of those adult trees is far beyond $300 a day ecologically, and they're not going to be able to be replaced in any reasonable amount of time. The root structure, none of that. It's not going to be the same. So I'm really not budging on the fines. Thanks.
Thank you. So this is a public meeting, not a public hearing. I'm not required to take public comment. It's entirely at my discretion, but given the nature of this violation, I'm willing to take public comment. However, if the public comment seems irrelevant or repetitive, I will cut you off. I'm also going to take public comment in a specific order because I know there are some people on the call that are representing direct abutters. We will go to them first before we seek general public comment. Before we do that, Mr. Wood, I'll recognize you one more time.
Yeah, my apologies. One final comment. I just wanted to say that with respect to the one incursion, a small incursion that went into the Delaney property, and I see Mr. Bailey on immediately. I've already been in touch with Mr. Bailey, and I just wanted to let the commission know that we're taking full responsibility for that incursion, and that we are moving as part of our restoration plan to come up with a restoration of that incursion and plan to get approval for that working with Mr. Bailey. So we're aware of it, we're on top of it, and we look forward to working with Mr. Bailey and his client to get an approved restoration for that specific area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So it's my understanding that Dan Bailey is representing an abutter for this project. Dan will recognize you at this point. Please introduce yourself for the record and your connection to the project, and then make your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Dan Bailey. I'm a land use attorney at Pierce Atwood in Boston. I am representing, as Mr. Wood stated, Douglas Delaney, who owns abutting property on Plover Lane, as well as Richard Wagner, who also owns abutting property on Plover Lane. Mr. Wood is correct that the the clearing work that his client did included work on Mr. Delaney's property, and that's a trespass. And the trespass and private issues we will deal with separately, but I absolutely, we want to see that area restored. Just a few comments. I would like to encourage the commission, and we have engaged our own consultant and we'll have our own suggestions, but we would like to encourage you to require a very thorough restoration plan. As was mentioned, this was a complete clear cut. Mr. Delaney used to have a very nice wetland buffer out his back window in his backyard. He now has a view all the way to Wellwinter Road, which is not really what he wants. you talked about the, the DiMartino project, which I was not involved in, but I followed. The importance is to, that project demonstrates that the importance is to require a rigorous restoration plan. For example, Mr. Turcott mentioned that there have been trees cut and there's no way to replace a mature tree. And he's correct, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that you can't require, 10, 12, 14-foot trees as opposed to 3 to 4 foot trees. So what I would encourage the commission to do is to require a restoration plan that is going to, restore this wetland as quickly as possible. I know what you'll do. I know what the restoration plan in general is going to look like. I know Mr. Madden does good work, but the whole, to the extent the commission can accelerate the restoration, that's what my clients would like to see you do. Another comment, to this point, I've been hearing you talking about handling this through an enforcement action. We would like to see you require a notice of intent. Given the amount of public outcry over this, a notice of intent will require that there be a public hearing and the opportunity for the public to comment. And I think, and that's not required under an enforcement order. And Mr. Engelborg, thank you. You're providing us with comment tonight, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure you're going to hear from some other people. But I think it's important for something of this high profile. And I also think it's important in the long run to send the message that, you don't go cut a bunch of file and NOI. Now this commission is pretty strict about requiring NOI filings that be in complete detail. It's not a commission that typically allows administrative proceedings outside of a public hearing for significant matters. You've also talked about fines, and certainly we would encourage you to impose fines to the maximum extent feasible, legally available. You mentioned that the fines, would go from the date of the enforcement order through to submission of a plan. Well, I would argue that that's not sufficient. As was previously mentioned, the homeowner here, the property owner, has this in his control. He has a delineation. As recently as last fall, there was a delineation done in connection with a proposed plunge pool. None of this was a mistake. It was purposely done. And the fine should continue until there's some amount of restoration actually installed. The last thing that I'm going to mention, and I'm trying to be brief because I know other people are going to want to speak. I understand why, a criminal disposition is not really in the Concom's wheelhouse. You are not a criminal enforcement board. You don't have expertise or authority. But what you can do is you can refer this to the DEP Southeast Regional Office, which does have the ability to impose those $25,000 a day fine. If they decide, they can also refer it to the Attorney General and the strike force. But I would encourage you to bring in DEP and ask them to bring an enforcement action and require an administrative consent order that the belt and suspenders to make sure that this restoration is properly done. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Mr. Bailey? Yes, John, go ahead.
You're asking us to handle this with a notice of intent. Wouldn't that delay the remediation if we go that route?
Not necessarily.
No? Okay. Thank you.
I think from my perspective, it has the potential to delay because there are like things that you have to do with the NOI. You have to advertise it, you have to, have the public hearing or whatever. But given that the representatives for the property owners said that they don't think a plan could be submitted until April anyways. You know, they can get the NOI together in that amount of time, so. Other commissioners?
Having worked with Mr. Madden, I'm quite sure he can get it done in that time.
Other commissioners? Okay. Brian, I'll recognize you.
Thank you. Yeah, just for clarification. So the intent would be to file the restoration plan and all the accompanying materials within the next 2 weeks. Make sure we have it fully built out and proposed to bring it back into compliance. So we're targeting about 2 weeks in advance of that April 3rd meeting. If we're looking at filing a notice of intent, I think that's going to significantly delay the ability to get plants in the ground this spring and potentially lose a growing season here. So I think our preference would be to handle this via the enforcement action and be able to get this resolved and submitted as quickly as possible.
Okay. Will, do you have any thoughts here as a staff member?
I think so far my only thought I'd be in agreement that we should require an NOI with this one. I think I don't have it in front of me, of course, right now, but I'm pretty sure that was included in the original enforcement order. When we do that, typically include language that it's like at our first meeting, we will determine when we want submission of that NOI by. So that may be, I need to see if I can pull it up, but I'm not on our town network. I'm at a Hampton Inn and Suites.
Okay. Commissioners, thoughts on requiring a notice of intent versus proceeding with the enforcement order? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I would be leaning on the enforcement order to get things moving along faster. And I guess a question for the attorneys or for Brian, when it comes to submitting the restoration plan, do you already have the contractor lined up in a reputable contractor that could do the work? Where does that come into play, I guess, is my question for whomever would like to answer that one. Thank you.
I'll let Mr. Madden answer that.
I don't have an immediate answer for you right now, but we can endeavor within the next 2 weeks to line that up and give you a better idea of schedule and who's going to be doing what, and making sure it gets done in a timely fashion.
Thank you. Linda?
Can he proceed under the enforcement order to get all this together while he's putting in an NOI?
Only if we allow them to, because there's currently a cease and desist, so we would have to, normally we have the cease and desist until the NOI is submitted and can be reviewed, and then we just go through that. But yeah, go ahead.
It would be my preference to allow them to continue under the enforcement order while they put the NOI in. Because the growing season, I can't believe we're in March, but the growing season, is coming up, and I'd hate to delay it, but I want to force them into the NOI.
Yeah, 50 degrees for the last 3 days, and climate change on Nantucket. The growing season's already here, but we'll go ahead.
Gotta keep track of those growing degree days. I was just gonna say, I believe, and I know we have some very good attorneys here right now, but I believe that we could allow them to continue the work under the EO and require an NOI. It just might take some languaging. But I did just want to chime in and correct something I just said because I did not check that box, but we have, that's something we typically edit through the process. So we can require an NOI, we can change anything based on our discussion.
Okay. Joe,
If I could jump in here, Mr. Chair.
hold on one second, Mr. Bailey. I'm going to recognize Joe Pandowski first.
I favor the enforcement route. And, regarding the fines, I think it depends on what sort of plan they come back with. It could be a dynamite plan or it could be a bummer. And that's what would happen with the fines.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bailey, go ahead.
Yeah, look, we have this absolutely the same interest, which is getting this work done as quickly as possible. And yes, it's a hustle now to get it designed, approved, and in this growing season. We understand that. But I do think that there's a two-step approach, which is you can approve a remediation plan under enforcement order and still require an NOI. And the reason that I think that works well is because then you ultimately have an order of conditions that you can enforce, and at least experience post restoration enforcement under OOC is just much clearer than, because they're going to have to get us a compliance. It's much cleaner than trying to do it under enforcement, where the process is not as well or as clearly spelled out. So my suggestion is to have a lateral approach. But whatever we do, I totally agree. I mean, I'm much more concerned with substance than process.
Thank you. RJ, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, through you to Joe. To your point, we could get a dynamite plan and it's not going to cover what was lost for years. And this property, if we find them from the 6th, we're at $8,400 for a property that's worth $5 million. So it's more about the point we're trying to make than anything else. I know Brian, he's going to do a great job, but the fact of the matter is you're not going to be able to replace a lot of what got cut down for years if it goes well. Is why I made the point I did. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to point out too that this is a unique site. We're talking about Wallwinnet here. It's not on Great Point, but if you want to think about a more difficult growing condition than pretty much anywhere else on Nantucket, there's not much farther to look. You want wind and salt spray, you're gonna get it on this site. So even the best restoration plan and the best contractor and the best growing conditions, there's gonna be problems with survivability. It's gonna take years to even get things established here. And it's going to take decades to get the associated ecosystem services that existed in December back. This is a very bad violation. Okay, Will, go ahead.
I think I just forgot to lower my hand, which is out of practice.
So one of the things that people might find frustrating about me is that I do tend to be pretty arcane about process. I do think that there's
Really, Seth?
I do think that's obvious.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is significant benefits for having the NOI. And Mr. Bailey and I very rarely agree. But sometimes, I mean, I always respect him, but sometimes we agree. And the tracking and follow-up and um, overall process of dealing with an enforcement ultimately through a notice of intent is significantly better than dealing with it through an enforcement order. If time was of zero essence, 10 times out of 10, I would say do that. The only reason I'm even slightly hesitant is to see if it would even be possible to get the enforcement done in this growing season. But I don't even know if that's possible. I think we should just do the notice of intent. Linda, go ahead.
I agree with you. I think it's the sheer scope what was done. And and I agree with you that it's more murky under the enforcement order, and we'd have more control and enforcement under the NOI. But I agree with Will that if we can keep them going under the enforcement order while they're putting in the NOI, I think for me that's my ultimate.
Thank you. Yeah, there might be a way to do that. So I'll recognize Glenn Wood at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might suggest a hybrid because I appreciate all things. I will say that in all of my enforcement work in the past recent years with all regions of DEP in the wetlands area, they're very much encouraging the use of enforcement act orders to do restorative work because of the speed of it. Several timing issues with notices of intent, if that was what was necessary to give the green light horn start to work. One, you've got obviously 21 days to issue the OOC. Secondly, we've got to wait 10 business days to commence the work subsequently, which is, over 2 weeks because it's business days. Thirdly, it could get appealed. And so all of those reasons weigh heavily against the work attempting to be commenced this spring. Our goal is to make that happen, Seth, and we appreciate that that's problematic. My suggestion might be that we continue, as RJ suggested, on the track of moving ahead and trying to get this work going under the EO as issued. And if the commission feels strongly that an after the fact NOI and an OOC is the best way to go to fully condition the work further, maybe that's a hybrid that the commission might want to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. And I will acknowledge that your history and record of working with enforcements around the state is quite extensive. So we appreciate that. Linda, go ahead.
Oh no, I forgot to take my hand down.
Okay. Any other
Move on.
commissioners at this point? Okay. We're going to now move on to other members of the public. The first I see is Allison Hudson. Allison, please introduce yourself for the record, any connection you may have to the project, and then please make a comment.
Thank you. My name is Allison Hudson. I'm a resident in Wauwinet, and listening to all of the fair comments during the course of the meeting, I noticed that there was a desire to identify what makes a a permanent structure. One of the reasons being for future ease of permitting and discussion. So I was wondering, theoretically, I don't expect an answer tonight, but food for thought. I was wondering why such an egregious transgression wouldn't be met with the full force that is available to you. You had mentioned we might not go down that road. We don't know if the $25,000 fine is appropriate. I don't understand why it isn't, if the goal is to not continue to have these types of problems in the future. We're now saying this is like the Sconset, and the next one is going to be like this is like the Wauwinet. And it's like, why not stop it when you can, as best you can? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Allison. And we certainly have significant amount of discretion at this commission to do whatever we'd like. I just think that, and I even labeled this violation egregious. But there is a level of comparison that needs to be made. It's
I understand. I understand. No, thank you. Thank you for listening. The one other comment I wanted to make is in regards to, through you, someone had mentioned that it wasn't cut down to the sand. That's because there's water. So there's water seeping through. It can be observed that it was cut down to the earth. Just because it isn't, granite or mud or sand doesn't mean it wasn't completely cleared down to the end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just getting back to my point about comparison, even throughout the state, I mean, there have certainly in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts been wetlands violations that have led to criminal complaints. And these are serious things like big box stores building their actual building in a river. Or like, something of that size and scope.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I believe that this is significant, we have to also be reasonable here. So we're gonna move on to other members of the public. I see Willa Arsenault with their hand raised. We'll bring them over. Please introduce yourself for the record, any connection you may have to the project, and make your comment.
Seth, I don't know if we lost her or if she unraised her
Yes,
hand.
I don't see Willa right now. But they're back in the attendees list. So
Can imagine she'd leave now.
if
Yeah,
you
I
can bring
highly
them
doubt it.
over.
I just tried to promote her again. Let's see.
Okay, we're gonna move on to Charity Benz and we'll take Willa next. Oh, actually Willa's here, so we're gonna take Willa, then Charity Benz.
Sorry, thank you for that. I had some technical difficulties. My name's Willa Arsenal. I'm speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council. I won't belabor the point, but we would echo a lot of the same concerns that Mr. Bailey had, and we really would love to see an NOI, just because I think it's the most productive way to have the commission be able to weigh in and condition a permit, and for the public to be able to comment on any restoration plans. So we really would like to see an NOI if possible, and we don't want to delay anything, but that's where I'd stand at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll recognize Charity Benz. Please introduce yourself for the record, any connection you may have to the project, and say your comment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. My name is Charity Benz. I have absolutely no connection to the project or anything, but as somebody who is concerned about what seems to be another terrible injustice to our fragile island, I was wondering, I just have two suggestions. One, I don't know if you've done this, and maybe you have, but if we have maps of wetlands, and it would seem to me a good idea, given the arrogance of whoever did this, that people who own these properties be in some way notified that their property does contain wetlands, and that any disturbance of those wetlands without permission of the Conservation Commission would be prohibited. And then the second suggestion might be that for realtors as properties are property sales or um, completed, that if there is wetlands on the property, that the new homeowner is put on notice and has to sign a document. God knows there are millions of documents that have to be signed at a closing, but they're put on notice and must sign that they are aware that there are wetlands on their property. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll recognize Tony Cahill next. Please introduce yourself for the record, any connection to the project, and make your comment.
Good evening, and thank you for holding this meeting. I'm Tony Cahill. I am president of the Wauwinet Landowners Association. I have a question. It's a historical record that when Plover Lane was initially developed, there was St. John's Cross, an endangered and protected species on and around that area. And the developer at that time was penalized, and his permits were withheld for like 2 years until he could figure out how to proceed. So I'm wondering how you would, how does the commission deal with a protected and endangered species in that vicinity? That is my first question. And also, I thought as additional penalty, he does have an extended application permit in order to put a plunge pool, landscaping, blah, blah, blah. And I think that should be withheld and revoked. That's what I have. Thank you so much for calling on me.
Thank you. As to your second point, we are not going to do that. It would be very bad practice to revoke the permits for projects that are seemingly in compliance or are going to be in compliance on the basis of non-compliance at a different part of the lot. You know, projects have to stand on their own. But as to your first point regarding the potential presence of the St. John's wort, we certainly have discretion to require any sort of botanical survey that would be needed to make sure that we are meeting the interests of the bylaw. You know, if DEP gets involved here as well, and any GSP gets involved, they might have their own actions that they want to pursue. But now is not the time of the year to look for that plant. But we certainly, in a notice of intent or an order of conditions for a notice of intent, could require that a botanical survey for that plant be done.
All right, thank you.
We'll go to Bruce Perry now.
Hey, good evening. I would just like to say that I appreciate all the efforts in this.
Yeah, please just introduce yourself for the record with your name and
Oh,
any
excuse me,
connection to
I'm
the
sorry.
project.
So this is Bruce Perry. I have no relationship with this project, but I have a long-term relationship with Nantucket. So I'd just like to say that initially I'd like to agree with Glenn Wood in that there's no reason you can't proceed with the enforcement process, and then as part of the conditioning of the enforcement order, require that a notice of intent be filed and an order of conditions be issued. So there's no purpose in that. In addition, an order of conditions has a longer time frame than probably than an enforcement order with conditions. It has the minimum of 3 years plus extensions that you need that time to restore this property. So I think that going concurrently would be a good idea. And secondly, this is, I don't know if it's secondly, but separately, this is an egregious wetland violation. The commission sees these every couple of years, and people don't pay attention to it, and I think they need to. You need to go out there and count the stumps of trees that have been cut, in addition to the smaller vines and wetland plants, and get an accurate accounting of what's taken down there. And as has been said, it's going to take 15 years for this to recover. The picture I've seen in the paper, which is the only access that I have, most of the work was done in the bottom of the swale. So that's where all the water is going to run off into. And it's going to be a huge impact. In addition to, if there's water already bubbling, potentially this area was a vernal pool. So now you have amphibian impacts that need to be addressed as part of the restoration. And that's about all I've got to say for tonight. And good luck.
Thank you. We'll go to Emmy Kilbert now. We need to bring them over. Please introduce yourself for the record, any connection to the project, and make your comment.
Hi, my name's Emmy Kilvert. I live at 4 Darling Street in town, and I have no connection to the project other than my care for the island as a whole. Earlier in the meeting, you asked for the name of the individual who did this work on the property. I'm curious whether the commission has any recourse or ability to find the individual or the landscaping company who did the work.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. We can issue enforcements to property owners, permit holders, contractors, or associated third parties. So we could include all the people responsible here on the enforcement.
And just to follow up, are they required to give the name of the individual who did the work?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, do we have any in-room commenters?
There's somebody here, but I don't know if she has a comment.
No,
No,
not
just
specific.
just an observer.
Okay. Tony, is your hand raised again? Please give
Yes, it is. Yes,
please be
it is.
brief.
Thank you, Seth. Tony Cahill, President, Wallwinnet Landowners. It would really be interesting if we could find out why the homeowner did this. Is this a possibility?
I don't think that's within our purview or our scope, but it is interesting. So we can ask, but I don't think that's really within our domain here.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? Okay. So we need to decide on several things here.
Then I'll go dry my hair. Are you watching a movie?
No.
I just
Please mute Emmy. So we need to decide on several things here. We need to decide on first how we're going to proceed with an enforcement versus NOI versus some hybrid fashion. We need to decide on if we're going to assess fines, what types of fines are we assessing and when they're starting, and what the length of those fines are. We need to decide if we would like to write a formal letter to DEP asking their Southeast Regional Office and Strike Force to weigh in on this so that they can also issue an enforcement leading to a DEP compliance order, which is separate from our process. And I believe that's it at this point, but commissioners, thoughts on that? We should make decisions on all those by the end of this meeting. John, go ahead.
So it would be my opinion that we do the hybrid, enforcement order with the NOI to follow. I think we should at least issue the fines as, a statement that we need them to keep on this. So even though I know Brian and I don't know Glenn, but I've heard his reputation is good and I'm sure they're going to do what they say they're going to do. We need to keep the hammer over their heads. And then I'd be in favor of, for that very reason, notifying DEP to just keep on them until it's actually done, because that seems to be everyone's goal here. So that'd be my take.
Okay. Other commissioners? Mike,
Kind of gonna fall in the same line as John. I prefer the enforcement with the hybrid to get the notice of intent. We can go ahead with the fines, and I don't see why we wouldn't get an opinion from DEP with the goal to put this property back the way it needs to be done.
okay. So it's a little bit of an odd process, but basically if we do this hybrid process, we're gonna be allowing them to proceed with getting their restoration plan in place, and then ultimately asking them to submit an NOI for after the fact work, which seems odd to me, but if that's what the commissioners want to do, that's what we can.
So, sorry, Seth, just to finish on why I say that, because there's so many tripwires in the process with appeals and that sort of thing, that I'm just afraid to, and I also don't think it's fair for the neighborhood to have potentially miss an entire growing season for the restoration. So that's why I'm and I'm just one voice on the commission, obviously, suggesting the hybrid versus the, I mean, there were good points that Glenwood made.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think it's a little bit of odd process, is all I'm saying, but I'm fine with it. I think it will get everyone's goals met. I saw RJ's hand raised.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm in agreement as well, especially going back to the discussion about survivability here. I think getting them plants back in the ground and as quickly as possible in this growing season, but having the control, the notice of intent, just in case anything doesn't quite survive, doesn't quite make it, makes the most sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
Same.
Okay, Joe?
I'll be on the outside. I'm going with the enforcement. The one message that stuck in my mind when I took the Commonwealth Commissioner's course is keep it as local and as reasonably pleasant as possible. Don't go after escalating it to wind up in court, because that's a loser all the way for both parties.
Thank you. John, anything else?
I mean, one thing seems that the remediation plan will be the basis of the NOI anyways, right? So we'll be able to follow up and see whether they did it and keep control over it. So it seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, it will be the basis. There might have to add some other things on eventually, but it will be the basis.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So let's start with the easiest part of this. It sounds like everybody wants to write a letter to DEP asking them to launch an investigation into this violation to see if the Southeast Regional Office or the Strike Force or both would think about having their own enforcement action. Is there a motion to that effect to write a letter to DEP?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. By roll call vote, Tim Bray,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
No.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative and 1 in opposition. Will, are you comfortable with drafting that letter?
Of course, I love writing letters. That sounded facetious, but I love it.
Okay.
You're a great civil servant. Okay. The second part is deciding on potential fines. So before we do that, Will, what is the actual first date that the violation was recorded as taking place?
Give me one moment. Where did I have it?
I know it was a month ago because I was out there.
Yeah, I
Right after you
have an
guys
email
did
that
that.
I sent out to the abutters, and I think I included the date in there, so I just want to check that. 10 seconds.
Honey, you should have more, better notes.
Bruce, please mute.
When did we take the viewing out there? It was just before that. So it's gonna be posted somewhere, isn't it? Or you have it in your computer?
Yeah, I'm in a hotel room. That's the only but I have it. You just gotta give me 1 minute. We're running on a lower bandwidth than normal.
The site visit was on February 4th, but that's not
Yeah,
necessarily.
but I'm gonna say I think it was January 27th. I just have a few dates floating around, but I have the exact date written down and it's included in the enforcement order, I believe, but I'm just searching through emails. But I think it was February 27th. It was
January
either that day
27th.
or sorry, January 27th.
Okay. So the earliest possible date that, well, first of all, we have to make a decision if we want to proceed with finding under the Nantucket Wetlands Bylaw non-criminal disposition or not. The earliest possible date that we could do that is January 27th. And the last date is still up for debate. First, before we get into the specific debates, I'm going to ask commissioners if they want to fine or not. Tim, yes or no?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Mike,
Yes.
Joe,
Not at this time.
John,
Yes.
RJ,
Bye.
Linda,
Aye.
and I myself, yes. Do people feel that we should use the earliest possible date and assess the violation as a separate offense for each day? That's what the text of the bylaw says. Linda?
I think we should start with that January date and maybe stop it today. Because they're in to us today. Does that make any sense?
That's an idea. We'll hear from everyone else. John?
Yeah, I think we start at the earliest date and then, but I'd be in favor of continuing it until it's done. Then we
Okay.
know.
Joe?
I just did the calculation. It's $19,000.
Okay. RJ?
I don't think it's $19,000 if it's $300 a day.
It's not $19,000, but
No, it's right. It's just over 10. But I'm in support of it. If we don't fine for this, I don't know what we fine for. So I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Is it 300 or 500?
300.
3.
It's 11,400 at $300 a day. And if that's stopped today,
Yeah, so we certainly could stop it today, and then if we're comfortable with how the process is proceeding, and we believe that the violators' representatives are being sincere about getting that plan before us as fast as possible, or we could continue it until that plan is submitted, or we can continue it until the restoration is complete. I mean, we really have a lot of discretion here, so. RJ, go ahead.
I don't know about until the restoration is complete. I'd be open to discussing that in the future, but I wouldn't stop it now. The trees aren't any less dead. And again, $300 a day, it's more of a symbolic thing. So I'd be in support of at least going until we had the plan before us, and then we can discuss further. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm strongly in favor of having it until the full restoration plan is before us at this commission. Tim, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, me too. I think until the plan comes.
Okay, Will, do you understand that? Yes.
I'll make you repeat it again later, but or I just watch the recordings. I just wanted to jump in. I think that 127 date is right. I jumped around to a couple different emails, but
Thank you.
If that's
And if you really care, we can actually find an extra $300 if you want, because the act of creating the violation is a different act of having the violated wetland in place, but now we're just being silly. But now we're just, yeah, that's
Yeah,
unnecessary.
let's move on from that.
Okay. Um, so
Beth?
yes, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm fine with until we see the fines, until we see the restoration plan. The only thing, I've got the enforcement order pulled open. The date on the enforcement order is February 6th. I don't know if it makes a difference.
so.
Yeah, the date of the
Yeah.
enforcement order is the date that it was ratified by this commission. It was
Yeah.
actually
Okay.
signed by Will before that. And the violation started before that. You know, we can choose any of these dates. If you guys don't feel comfortable with starting until February 6th, we'll start with February 6th, but it's up to your discretion.
I'd like to go from the date of the enforcement order.
Okay, Will, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I'm whatever, 6 days of $300 is not a huge deal for a lot of people. It is to me. But I just wanted to mention that 127 date. I'm not super scared of it because I'm pretty sure it happened a day or two before that. Even. So I just wanted to jump in. I'm happy with the March 6th, but I wanted to give some context because I don't want to be afraid of the date for no reason.
Yeah,
February 6th. February 6th.
Yeah, I'm on
Um,
vacation.
Yes, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just point out that the reason we're here tonight is because that's the date you put in the enforcement order. We could have appeared at your last hearing, but that's not the date you put in. So penalizing our client if you're going to use a fining date of today as opposed to 2 weeks ago when you could have put it on our agenda seems unfair to us. Because you controlled when we could appear in front of the commission per the enforcement order, which we are complying with. So there's a nuance to this. We are following the enforcement order, but getting penalized because we weren't placed on your agenda 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
All right, I'm willing to go to the enforcement order on the 6th and just call it a day.
Thank you, Glenn. And I take your point and I hear the relevance of it. RJ Turcotte.
I take that point too, but to me, it's getting as close to the date where the trees were cut down as possible. And if that's the 27th and that's the day Will went out there and confirmed it, then I'm comfortable with that date. Thank you.
Okay, Joe.
Glenn Wood just presented the case that I'm making, which is let's not jump into the fine area. All that's going to do is cause conflict up ahead. Let's wait until we see the plan, which is 2 weeks away. Then we can decide what we want to do.
Thank you, Joe. You made your point very clear. And I mean, I do hear it in some ways because I do believe that fines, you know, aren't really the end goal here. The end goal is restoration, but I think both are required. Any other commissioners at this point?
Yeah, I have my hand up.
Yes, go ahead.
We batted around. We have some new members on here, but we batted around the fining issue in Sconset for some time. And we all agreed that you have to fine them. What they do from here on out, they're going to have to present that to us. That does not absolve them of the fact that they did what they did and they need to be fined for what they did. Now, whether it's the 27th of January or the 6th of February, I want to take away any possibility of an appeal on that particular issue, but I don't care, whatever the majority wants to do. But they need to be fined. What they do in 2 weeks or under the NOI or the enforcement order is, going forward. But they need to be fined for what they did do. They can't get around that.
Thank you. I think the best way to do it is to use the earliest possible date that we are sure that the violation occurred, because that's what our bylaw tells us to do.
Works for me.
Um, so, yes, Will.
I don't want to flip flop back and forth here, but hearing Linda, it may be wise to pick the am I going to say February or March? February 6th date, because we have it on an official document written and it's record. I did just want to say quickly for context, I think most people probably know this, but when we do issue an enforcement order, I try to, and obviously this is never with the thought or intention of a fine coming in afterwards. But I try to give people as much time as we can before requiring them to come to a meeting, usually so that they can acquire counsel, as is obviously needed in this situation. So I just wanted everybody to know that we kind of set that clock that way, I think, to be helpful.
Thank you. And I think just using the February 6th date is fine. If we want to just use the ratification date, it's not a big deal. John, go ahead.
How about this? We go from February 6th to March 6th, and in 2 weeks, we revisit when we see the plan. That kind of keeps everybody happy. We assess that amount of fines, and then when they bring their plan in, we'll look at it and see what they've got. Maybe we assess more fines, or maybe we don't,
Say that again.
He wants
Just an idea.
he wants the fines to start on February 6th and end today.
And then in 2 weeks, when they present their plan, well, if it's great, then maybe that's it. If it's not, maybe we'll go further.
Okay.
Gives us some options and kind of keeps everybody happy, I think.
You're willing to make a motion to that effect if you want, or if people want to discuss it first, go ahead.
I move that we fine from February 6th to March 6th at 300 a day.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. It's been made and seconded. I'll allow additional discussion before we go to a vote. Is there any additional discussion? Yes, RJ first, then Mike.
Thank you. I'm okay with switching to the 6th, but I think that the fine should continue until they have a plan before us. Period. I'm not really willing to budge on that. Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
Same, and I don't really feel good about it, but I think we should wait till we have the plan in hand.
Tim?
I agree.
I also agree. So, John, I think your motion will fail if it goes to a vote.
Okay. I'll withdraw my motion.
Willing to go to, okay, thank you for withdrawing the motion.
Okay, I'll withdraw my second. So I'm even more confused than I was 5 minutes ago.
So we need a motion. I think the sense of the committee is we want a motion starting on the February 6th and going until a restoration plan has been received by this commission. Would somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, RJ. Is there a second? Thank you, Tim. Any additional discussion? Seeing none on that, by roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Joe Pondowski.
No.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
RJ Turcott.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Seth Ingeborg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative and 1 opposed.
Now I got a headache.
Sorry, but we still have one more thing to do here.
I know.
We now need also to amend this enforcement order. to require or to
To allow
require that
them,
the
right?
amend the enforcement order to require that the restoration plan come to us by a specific date.
Okay.
And then also to ask for a notice of intent to be submitted.
Question,
Yes,
in the amending the enforcement order, does that allow them to proceed with improvements on what they did? Or are they stuck with exactly where we are right this second?
we have discretion. We have the ability to lift the cease and desist. But I wouldn't lift
Not
the
doing
cease and
that.
desist until we had a plan in place. But yeah, they can proceed with planning and submitting documents and all that. And then once that's submitted, we could lift the cease and desist to allow work to proceed.
Okay, because I'm just worried about them not being able to start to plant now that we're getting warmer, at least for the moment.
Yeah, they
Yeah, we don't know what they're gonna plant. Yeah,
they can't plant anything until we have a plan in front of us.
right.
And once that plan
Right.
is in place, we can lift the cease and desist to allow work to proceed.
Okay, works
But
for
what
me.
we need right now is a motion to ask for the restoration plan by a specific date and another motion to also require a notice of intent to be submitted for this project.
Okay, so I'll move to amend the enforcement order to include the submission of a restoration plan by March 20th.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pondowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye, although I realize we made a mistake here. Usually when we have these specific dates, we also have a condition in there that allows applicants to submit a letter if they can't meet the date, indicating why they can't meet the date.
Okay.
So John,
I'll modify my second if he wants to modify his
John, would
motion.
you amend your motion
I will
to,
amend my motion to amend the enforcement order to allow the applicant to submit a reason if they need an extension for the date that we asked for, March 20th.
And I'll
so
second that.
thank you. So the motion on the floor is to require the violator to submit a motion or to submit a restoration plan by March 20th, or if they cannot do that, to submit a letter to the Conservation Commission indicating why they can't do that. This motion has been made and seconded by roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pondowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye, and good luck to the person doing the minutes off of this one.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And now we need a motion also to require the violator to submit a notice of intent to deal with the to continue the process to deal with the remediation site.
Okay, I'll make a motion for the violator to submit a notice of intent for the remediation of the violation subsequent to our last motion, I guess, of March 20th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Linda. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pondowski,
No.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative and 1 opposed. And I believe at this point, we've satisfied everything we need to do at this hearing, unless, Will, you think there's anything else?
The thumb is up. I'm rereading the notes. This is, I believe we have kind of 4 action items from here. So to write the letter to DEP, our $300 per day fines from 2/6 till the restoration plan is submitted, which will be 320 or continued. amend the EO to require submission of resto plan by 3/20. Amend the EO to require submittal of an NOI by 3/20. And I don't think that we have any other missions to accomplish tonight.
I don't think
Feeling-
the notice of intent motion was by 3/20. I think it was just to submit it as part of the process.
Okay.
That seems like it would be not possible.
Yeah, I heard that, I think I heard that wrong and we were just gonna go with continuances, but I think that that makes sense. And we can edit obviously as we meet on this topic. If we have to put a date on the NOI submission, once we're there.
Okay. Thank you to everybody who came here tonight on behalf of the property owner, abutters, the public, and of course, our staff and commission. I know this has been a complicated matter, but we appreciate all your efforts, and I know that we ultimately will get towards a positive resolution for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
So, with that being said, we now will go back to orders of condition. NED Site Management LLC, shoal dredging off of 34 Straight Wharf. Will, do you have this ready for us?
I do, and this was if you guys saw me get up and make a phone call at one point, it was because I needed to double check. This was in the waiver section for some reason. I do not believe that this project requires a waiver. Everything, they met all the performance standards for dredging and land under ocean. It's water dependent. So let me know if anybody disagrees, but I gave Jeff a call and I was like, am I crazy here or is this just in the wrong place? And then the overview is just that we had completed shore dredging for the Highline ferry berth, resulting from an issued emergency certification within land under ocean and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Additional findings, I just threw in dredging performance standards were able to be met, and this project is water dependent. If that's what we're going with, doesn't even need to be there, but that is it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I just checked the two dredging performance standards, and I think they meet those standards. So I don't think a waiver is required. And
Did
it's
some
certain-
rereading of their NOI as we were.
It's certainly water dependent. It's in the water. So
Yeah.
Questions, comments, concerns from commissioners? Seeing
Motion to
none,
approve.
thank you. Is there a
Second.
second?
Second,
Okay, by roll call vote, Tim Brand,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pondowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Roger Turcott,
Bye.
Linda Williams,
aye,
Will Diller, not Will Diller, he's the staff. Seth Engelborg.
Somebody.
Seth Engelborg votes aye. That carries unanimously. And the last thing on our agenda, going back to other business, any staff reports?
Hey, no, not really. I would just like to say thank you guys. I know there was a lot going on tonight and this was some back and forth and some interesting motions and whatnot. So thank you for your diligence. And also, I know we have a bunch of work to do and Will's got a bunch of work to do. But I think we're making the right moves here. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for a good meeting. That's Will's staff comment. I'm on vacation now. I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Well,
With that
fine
being said,
then.
we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that
So moved.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Linda and Mike, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brand,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pondowski,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Roger Turcott,
Bye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for running it so well.
Have a good night.
Good night,
You're
guys.
all
Too.
welcome to text me. I was joking. Bye.
Thanks, bye.